welcome in to another episode of Chiefs Focus Live. First show in a little bit. Still no JP, but we got some news to talk about, so we thought that we would get to it. Let's give you the rundown real quick. We got a couple of small notes. Chiefs signed all the rookies, and tonight's the ring ceremony. We've got some Patrick Mahomes press conferences. He spoke to the media, and this will be the last time he speaks to the media for the next 6 weeks.
Yep.
And we've got a really interesting conversation of which player has the most at stake heading into the 2024-2025 NFL season. Thiz is running the show in the background, and now a guy whose brain is melting as summer hits its peak. It's the Professor Caleb. How is it going, buddy?
Quentin, it's real out here. It's hot. It's going to be in 90s this week, and it's going to be on 90s all next week. It may start thunder and lightning during our show, so we're in peak summertime. How are you doing, my friend?
We are. It is getting to that point where it's like it's June. We're in the middle of June now, right? And so when you look at the weather at your weather app, and you're like, oh Jesus, it's 95 degrees outside, and you're like, okay, but it's also June 13th, so you know we've been pretty lucky so far, I guess we could say, with just the lack of heat that we've had. I feel like last year we got hot much faster, so. I'll take the mediocre heat as long as we can avoid those 10-day stints of when it's literally 102 degrees outside. That's when it gets real bad.
It's gonna be like that very soon.
I know. I just don't want to think about it.
Very soon.
Okay, so let's get into a couple of small notes here. The Chiefs signed all of their rookies. Xavier Worthy was the last to sign. I believe he signed last week, so no drama there. That is your official 2024 draft class, and Kansas City is ready to move forward with that. It's not nearly as difficult to sign NFL rookies than it is in baseball, just because draft picks have set values for what they're able to do. So there's not a ton of negotiating that can be done there. It's very small things about the contract that can be negotiated, because all the money is preset based on where you're picked. But it is it's part of the rookies are officially Chiefs now.
Yep. We are having a new era. The new class is coming in. It'd be interesting to see how many are going to stay on this team moving forward, because a couple of years we've had some rookies on this team. They don't get past. We end up releasing them after 1 year. So I think this is probably one of the better draft classes I've seen Beach do in a while. And it's looking really good on paper, so I can't wait to see what's going to happen. They've been doing really well OTAs. Training camp is, I think Quentin just said, 6 weeks or so. So, hey, we're about them for Chiefs fans about a little bit over a month, because we get to see all the stuff we've been hearing and talking about for a very long time. We get to see some action, some hits. It's going to be great.
Yeah, there was no media availability for through the team for the next 6 weeks. So tonight at the ring ceremony, there is no official media availability. I'm sure some of the players will end up, talking to people, but from here until the start of training camp, anything that you hear is not through the Chiefs. It'll just be off-ball stuff. So we're really starting to hit that sort of dead point in the off season. Speaking of which, the ring ceremony is tonight. So I haven't seen any of the pictures of the rings yet.
I haven't either.
I imagine that.
Nice,
yeah, tomorrow it's going to be all over and I'm interested to see. Last year they had the whole bit where the center popped out, and you could see in Arrowhead Stadium, each ruby and diamond in there represented something. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. They got to continue to be more creative, because the more and more Super Bowls you win, you can't make the same ring over and over again.
That is true. You got to make it unique and different every single time. But Quentin, did you know, real quick, Mahomes by himself has tied the number of Super Bowls that the Raiders have, and as a whole, adding what we had in 69, the Chiefs have more than the Raiders.
Yes, actually, yeah, and Kansas City has. They're tied with the Broncos as well.
The Broncos have 3.
So the Chiefs have more than the Broncos, and they have more than the Chargers. Because I think the Chargers, aren't they one of the few
that don't have
one?
They have a 1994 loss in the championship game, and the same thing happened in 2007-2008 season. So that's the farthest they've ever gotten.
Yeah, there's 6 teams in the NFL that don't have a Super Bowl, and 2 or 3 of them are expansion teams. So,
let me look that up.
There's a lot of teams in the NFL that just don't have, like, the Jaguars and Texans don't have Super Bowls, but that's like because they're still relatively new expansion teams. The Browns don't have them. You'll see, like, around their stadium, they'll have like pre-merger championships, but those don't count. You
got the Browns, the Lions, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Titans, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Bengals, the Bills, the Vikings.
Longer than I thought.
Yep, that list is long. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Over a third of the league.
Half the league. We get almost less than half the league.
Yeah. So. Wow. That's way more teams than I thought. Okay, let's get into some of the press conferences. There's one really interesting quote that Patrick Mahomes had talking about Hollywood Brown and some of the stuff that he had to say about that. And I have a controversial, possibly controversial opinion on this. I know, big surprise to anybody that listens to the episode or to the show often is that I have something controversial to say about, well, really anything that happens. But I think this has the quote ready for us. So he says, honestly, I don't know how he's here in our place because of how talented he is. I can just see that it's going to be a great season for him. This is about Hollywood Brown. He's going to help all these guys open because you have the speed threat that can run routes and do all of those different things. So there's a couple of points here. So I'm very excited for the regular season. There's a couple points that I want to bring up here. One, I think this shows that Kansas City up to this point is wanting to throw the ball down the field, right?
Yes.
There have been some inklings of that coming out. I do think that we're going to see a different offense from this. So, Caleb, what are your thoughts on just the quote and then that first point?
Well, number one, I have to give a shout to Thiz. Great background work with that graphic. Looks like you were there drawing up yourself. So congratulations to you there, man. Number two, I want to say is that I agree with Quentin. Downfield passing is going to be huge. You got Hollywood Brown. You have guys like Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and then also many more. So I think when we look at this team moving forward, Mahomes is going to push the envelope, I feel like, this year. We're going to have a lot more long ball touchdowns, I think. Not this short, dink and dunk stuff. I think we're going to see some of that longer game develop. And what they're saying on the camp OTS is Rashee Rice is looking like one of the best players out there. It looks like he has matured up some from what it sounds like. We've already know what Hollywood Brown can do. He's a speedster. And adding Xavier Worthy, Kelsey, and all those other guys, I mean, Mahomes may go for 50 and more touchdowns. If he breaks that more than 50 touchdowns, that'd be awesome. Because isn't the record Peyton Manning has 55 or something like
55, that? It's 55, yeah.
Can you see Mahomes possibly breaking that record? Because I think he could.
I definitely think he could, and it helps because when Manning did it, he did it in 16 games, whereas now he has the extra game to do it. But, I mean, it's Manning who has the 5,055 touchdowns. Brady has a 5,050, and Mahomes has a 5,050. That's your list.
Hey, but to get over 56,
yeah,
I'm just saying.
I mean, it is a crazy. The fact that he was able to do it, I don't think we talk about that offense enough. And maybe it's just because we're in Kansas City, and anything positive about the Broncos is ridiculous. But that means he has to throw over a 17-game season, right? In order to throw 56 touchdowns, he has to throw over 3 touchdowns a game, 3.29.
In some games, go ahead.
Sometimes he would have to average more than 3 passing touchdowns a game in order to accomplish that in a 17-season game.
And a fun fact, that Mahomes' year when he went 50 and 5,000, there were a couple games he didn't even have a passing touchdown. So
yeah, and then there was what against the Steelers where he had 7?
6.
So 6?
Yeah, 4 the first week, 6 the second week, 10 in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, this guy's a keeper.
Well, and then in the third week is when during against the 49ers, we had that crazy pass to Chris Conley in the back of the end zone.
Had like 3 that week.
So I just think that I do think that Kansas City is going to make an effort to throw the ball down the field more. I think that you hear that coming out of OTAs, but also it's just how they've structured this offense heading into this year, right? They went out and they made the effort to go and get speed receivers, right? They went out and they got Hollywood Brown, who was a deep threat. They went out and they drafted the fastest guy, the guy that ran the fastest combine. And then they also went and they got McCole Hardman back on this team, who I know was very, very up and down between whoever you talk to in Chiefs Kingdom, very much like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire type, where you either really like the fact he's on this team or you really don't like the fact. There's really not a lot of in between. But you go out and you search for all of these different guys that have varying degrees of speed and skill set. It's almost like you don't really have much of a intermediate game to really go to. The only guy that on the roster right now that is like, this is your intermediate guy is Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. But, for this conversation, we can move him aside.
And Justin Watson.
Justin Watson. But it's like, I'm not really expecting anything you get from Justin Watson is bonus. I'm not expecting anything from him. When you go out and build your team like that and you structure your team like that and you're a competent organization that the Chiefs have shown that they are, when you look and seeing what they're doing from a personnel standpoint, they're showing their hand on what they want to do, right? When you're the New York Jets, for example, and you're going out and you're getting all of Aaron Rodgers' friends, and you're like, how does this incorporate into an offense? That's how dysfunction works, right? When you see them just throwing pieces and trying to gather a bunch of different guys that have no unison other than the fact that they've all shared a locker room with Aaron Rodgers, that's what dysfunctional teams do. You don't see how it all gels together versus what Kansas City has done. You see the effort to try and get back some of that deep pass that Kansas City has been missing over the last couple weeks. Really, I mean, since we traded Tyreek Hill, right, Kansas City has had a lack of a deep passing game, right? There have not been very many games where we're like, man, that Patrick Mahomes throw 45 yards down the field, 50, 60 yards down the field. There just hasn't been. The impressive throws have come on those 12-yard plays where I didn't even realize that he was open and you put it in just the right spot. So I think over the last couple of years, you sort of get the blend of we know he can throw the ball deep because we saw that early in his career. Now we see the fact that he can, I don't want to say dink and dunk because I think that phrase is sort of used to like, we think of like Alex. Yeah, it minimized the offense like an Alex. Oh, you're just a dink and dunk quarterback. It's almost like you're looking down on it. But that's what the offense has been, right? Your average yards per attempt and stuff like that have fallen back since the Tyreek Hill days. So you're able to merge those two parts together, and Kansas City can go out and have a more impressive offense than they did last year. I think that's the big thing that I get from that.
No, I agree with you. And yeah, that's kind of the thing with the Chiefs for all those years. It was the dink and dunk, Alex Smith, and we were concerned as fans. I mean, you remember this, Quentin? We couldn't complete a third and seven. But once I saw Mahomes doing that and consistently, I'm like, oh my goodness, we can finally get a first down. 3rd and 15, no problem because we have Mahomes. So I mean, yeah, the dink and dunk was something we did not like. But here's what was important: Andy that first year made Mahomes work on the dink and dunk and get that perfected. And Alex helped him with that. And that even Mahomes gives credit today, having Alex give him the basics. And Alex Smith was a team player. I was like, hey, I'm going to help you. And because of that allowed Alex Smith to get paid that final bit in Washington, all that money from the Commanders or the football team. So I think that's just important. It shows the team environment, the team chemistry. Yeah, we did not like Alex Smith, what he did, but what he was able to do what was able to do when put his back against the wall, and then also when it came to mentoring this next group, man, I mean, that's something. I mean, honestly, that's just something that's just great. We've never seen before, because all the times we've seen where quarterbacks have be like, no, I'm not helping them the competition. Joe Flacco's one, and there's been many others.
Nope.
So I think it just speaks to the volume of the organization. Joe Flacco.
There you go. Okay, Joe Flacco. Okay.
So I mean, hey, he got paid for throwing that touchdown. The Broncos DB couldn't see the ball, missed it. Mikey, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, man. You guys haven't done that since 2015. But yeah, I mean, that's typical what we see. And to show that this team is all about helping and building each other up, that's important. And this is why I'm hoping This is why I'm hoping Kelsey can help Wiley become the next Kelsey or maybe be greater. I'm just saying the attributes are there. The attributes are there, and the guy is athletic.
There was actually, and we can talk about this later, there's actually an interesting conversation that Travis Kelce had with the media, and Andy Reid said about Wiley, but we can talk about that in a minute. My second point, my next point on the Patrick Mahomes quote is that in the past, Patrick Mahomes has been very glowing about specific receivers and some receivers that have been very popular among the fan base, despite the fact that they've shown nothing on a football field. And then he's been very glowing about them. And then when it comes to training camp, he talks about the guy, about how he's going to be the next big thing. And then when the season comes around, nothing. There's absolutely nothing. Or he barely even makes the 53-man roster. So my concern is that we are seeing Patrick Mahomes talk glowingly about Hollywood Brown, and I see where he's coming from, and I understand the talent. But then I remember that he talked glowingly about John Ross and about how great he was supposed to be, and he didn't turn into anything. And so I want to take a step back because I understand that Hollywood Brown is a very talented guy, and we've seen production from him at the NFL level, which is something we did not see from Ross. But this is OTAs. This is off-season stuff. You're in shorts and T-shirts. Anything that I see, anything that anybody says, I want to take with a grain of salt about production, because we've seen how this team works. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, they talk about the potential that these guys have, and it doesn't necessarily translate to the field.
Well, here's what I gotta say this. Number one, Quentin, if we take this quote you just said, number one, Hollywood Brown has been a proven player in the league. So that's going to be very, very important. Hollywood Brown has been a proven player. Number two, Justin Ross hasn't really gotten the opportunity in my opinion.
Oh, my God, no.
I'm just saying.
No.
I know you're listening somewhere. Moving. He has not gotten his chance. And that's my question for you was, do you think John Ross can weasel his way into this group? Because when you look at it, Hollywood Brown is going to break some tops off the defense. That's going to allow for other guys to really run. I think McCole could have a very good year, especially in the quick short game. I think also John Ross, I can see some one-handed catches coming his way.
Stop
but again,
it.
Quentin, we can't be hating. We know what Hollywood Brown can do. If Hollywood Brown does nothing, then this is a failure. Not on Beach, but on Hollywood Brown. Because what we see is that this guy can dominate. You saw what he did with Ravens and Lamar Jackson. We see what he did in Cardinals with Kyler Murray. I can only imagine what he can do with Mahomes. And I feel like they're going to scheme him right. When he was with the Ravens, they ran the ball all the time. When he was with the Cardinals, there really wasn't a great surrounding cast. Great coach with the Chiefs, great quarterback, great surrounding cast. Everybody's going to eat.
And
even Justin Ross.
And stop it. And that's where I am less hesitant to draw back. Like my first instinct is to draw back. But the door is kind of it squeaks back open. My optimism squeaks back open because the whole point about Hollywood Brown has done it at the NFL level. He has had 1,000-yard season. He's played in two totally different kinds of offenses, right? Under the pure air raid and the running offense from the Ravens, right? He's played in two totally kinds of different offenses, as he's succeeded to certain levels at both of them. He's had two totally different quarterbacks, right? Lamar Jackson is a quality passer of the football. Kyler Murray he's fine. He's an above average. He's a fine quarterback, right?
Lamar Jackson is not. Do you say he's above average?
No, Kyler Murray is an above average quarterback.
I think Kyler Murray is good. I just don't think
Lamar Jackson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. So he's played with two different kinds of quarterbacks and two totally different offensive systems, and we've seen him succeed. And so because of that, I do think that the optimism, the conversations about Hollywood Brown coming out of Patrick Mahomes' mouth when he talks about how he's surprised that Hollywood Brown is here on a 1-year deal because he is so talented, almost like how could the rest of the NFL miss out on a guy like that, because he is just so talented
Mm-hmm.
Why is he only here on a 1-year deal kind of conversation? I think it's for a couple reasons, which I know we've talked about when he signed here
Mm-hmm.
in Kansas City. But I'm more optimistic to give him some of the benefit of the doubt almost because he's done it in the NFL with
Mm-hmm.
multiple different spots.
Mm-hmm. No,
The
that's okay. Good.
No, I was going to move on to my third point, so go ahead and comment on that.
No, I was saying that's a fair point. I just feel like he can reach another level with the play calling, coaching, and quarterback play is going to be probably the best in his career. I feel like, barring injuries.
Yeah, of course, barring injuries is always the like offset here, especially at the NFL level, where we know injuries are going to are going to occur. That's just the way that it is. The third point that I want to make is something that kind of snuck into that quote, where he said he's going to help Trav get open. He's
Mm-hmm.
going to help Rasheed get open. I think that once again sort of dives into what Kansas City is going to do. I think this means that Rashee Rice has solidified himself into that number 2 wide receiver, slot receiver kind of guy. We
Mm-hmm.
know his best ability is going to be working in the intermediate part of the field. And we
Yep.
know that's what Travis Kelce is. So we've got Brown on the outside. We've got Rice on the other side. Rice can run some more of those slant out routes, dig routes, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We can use Hollywood Brown to run more crossers and fades and posts and that sort of thing. And then whatever the hell Travis Kelce wants to do, he can go do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way that this offense is going to set up,
I
if
agree.
all things are working in their favor moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing I noticed too. I think honestly, with Kelce just get open. That's what they're going to do because you have all this offensive firepower that people aren't realizing. And again, I don't think people realize what the Chiefs could do with a full playbook and all these guys. All the time, JP and I have talked about before you were on here, Quentin. We would talk about how they're only on page 3 or 4 of this massive Stephen King novel. Well, JP, if you're listening, I can tell you we're on page 90. I think we're about to have some reverses, some sweeps, some crazy stuff. We may do the Texas Longhorn specialty, hand the ball off to running back, runs the side, quarterback gets in, just does a dagger. I mean, you can line up these guys anywhere. So honestly, this team is in a very good spot moving forward. I feel like, barring injuries, barring issues, but I feel like this team, they just got to do what they can do each and every week, and they'll be just fine.
And here's the thing with what this does is that this takes a lot of pressure off of Xavier Worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because when Rice came into the offense last year, he had to perform. He had to. There was nobody else on the, especially once the season started and we saw where the wide receiver room was. There
Mm-hmm.
was nobody to be the number 1 guy in the wide receiver room. So we needed Rashee Rice to step up. Kansas City doesn't need Xavier Worthy to be that guy like they
Mm-hmm.
needed Rice to be. You have
That's
Hollywood Brown. Now you have Rice and you have Kelce. So
mm-hmm.
in theory, he's the 4th receiving option if all goes well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is very important because it allows him to focus on the things that he does well, and
Mm-hmm.
you can put him in the best position to succeed, which is what Andy Reid does sort of in that rookie year, right? Where it's like, hey, we're going to try and teach you everything at once, but when you get onto the field, we're going to put you in the areas to succeed. In the
Mm-hmm.
classroom, it's everything. When you're on the field, we're going to focus on these few things so that way when you're on the field, you get the experience. Where
Exactly.
Rice, he was kind of just, it was thrown at him, and
Mm-hmm.
then when he was on the field, he had to do so many different things because there was a failure across the wide receiver room. It's not the case this year.
And when I was looking at the highlights of Rashee Rice and looking just at the games, you can find those compilations. They show the whole season in an hour and 15 minutes. It doesn't even feel like an hour 15 minutes. But you see Rashee Rice week by week by week. I'm like, this guy is tearing it up. Like, he's a future wide receiver 1. And then add Hollywood Brown, Xavier Ward. I'm like, oh my goodness. This team has a chance to put some record-setting numbers if all goes well.
I think that one of the other things that Patrick Mahomes was asked about in the press conference is that he talked about how because the offense was just so bad for large swaths of the year, that Kansas City has an opportunity to be such a better team this year because your defense, everybody except L'Jarius Sneed is back, right? You have your entire defense back that was there last year, aged another year in the system for another year, and then you get an offense that gets a good swift kick in the ass last year. Like you won a Super Bowl, obviously, right? The ring ceremony's tonight, but man, was that offense not good.
Brutal at times.
It was brutal at times. And the numbers, Kansas City was an above average offense in a lot of statistical areas, but the eye test was just, this is just not, it was dysfunctional. It was so dysfunctional where Kansas City it just felt like they were banging their head against the wall. They could have, with a few different plays, they could have been a totally dominant team, right? Whereas I think that that's truly on board this year because your wide receiver room, I think if Hollywood Brown is what, he's being talked about to be, I think that this Chiefs wide receiver room is just so much better than what it was last year. Now, I still have my trepidations about it, right? I think I talked about a few weeks ago that there is a chance that you didn't make enough moves in the offseason to fix your wide receiver room, that you could be back right where you started with. Because there's a chance that Hollywood Brown is like an MVS type, where it's just not what it's sold out to be. And then what do you have?
Too much speed. MVS was like, okay, go on, we're going to throw it up to you. Hollywood Brown, though, is a burner. That guy in college was a burner. He's been a burner with the Ravens when they occasionally threw the ball. He was a burner with Kyler Murray. I just can only imagine what he is going to do in the future.
I definitely do like this signing a lot more, the Hollywood Brown signing, than the MVS signing, because there is just way more of a proven track record, So, I don't want to get it conflated. I'm not saying that Hollywood Brown is MVS. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that there is, in my eyes, there is a world where, because you only made one offseason signing and you drafted a guy because of his speed, there is a chance that you don't advance as much as you thought you were going to.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I think, and again, I just feel like there are multiple levels to this offense that could be now that's going to be unlocked that we haven't seen before. And I just feel like with all these weapons, I think we're in for a really good year.
And I'm definitely leaning more towards that because I do think Hollywood Brown is better than what Kansas City had last year. I'm definitely leaning more towards that. The on terms of the Travis Kelce Wiley conversation, that it was Andy Reid, and I know Travis Kelce has talked about this too, is that they're just really excited for how well he's picking up the playbook. And Travis Kelce talked about how he has had more thrown on, Wiley's had more thrown on his plate now than when Travis Kelce was a rookie, and he's just absorbing it. And so let the Travis Kelce Wiley comp just start to go off board. Let it just go crazy, because man, and I'm gonna have to poo-poo on that parade when this preseason comes, because people like you,
as usual.
People like you are going to talk about how he's the next Travis Kelce, and I'm going to have to come stomp.
I said I'm
going to have to sit on this podcast, and I'm going to have to sigh and just say, "Come on, guys, let's take a chill pill." But hey, I'll give it like 2.5 months. That's what I'll do.
I never say he's going to be the Kelce. I say he has the potential to be like Kelce, be better than Kelce.
Potato.
He's picking up the playbook. The guy's athletic. This is the guy that I'm very happy the Chiefs have as their next tight end. Someone who's physical, someone can block, someone can move and can catch the ball. So a 2 tight end set with both of them, perfect. Just saying. But Quentin, I hope you're wrong, because then you're gonna be coming back and saying, "Yeah,
that's true. That's true." And you know what? I'm okay with being wrong. I'm okay, especially for that. Oh no, the wide receiver on Kansas City, the next drafted tight end they got is also a future Hall of Famer. Oh, the humanity! I'm so upset.
You're like, I'm glad I was wrong. Yep.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's the other thing that I just wanted to we're gonna see more videos of people coming out catching balls in shorts and t-shirts. And I was texting with my friend the other day, and he sent me that picture or that he sent me that video of Remigio, which if you remember,
Mm-hmm.
I was wanting him to be picked up as
Yep.
basically as a punt returner, kick returner, and punt returner last year. And he sent me a video that was on the Twitter sphere of him catching a ball in shorts and a t-shirt. And I was like, it's shorts and a t-shirt, man. He better be catching the goddamn ball.
Hey,
But
sometimes they be dropping that thing.
all right, let's move on to this is a very interesting discussion. We have the audio queued up, so I'll go ahead and let this play it, and then we can break it down here after the audio is played. So why don't you go ahead and let that run?
For me, the player who has the most at stake in the entire NFL this coming season.
I think it's Patrick Mahomes. And there's only you could say decade, every couple decades. It's not even every 10 years. It's generational stuff where quarterbacks come around or players come around and have a chance to really be considered one of the greatest of all time. And we know at the end of the day, we're going to start counting rings. And right now he has a team that is a championship contender. This always won't be true. So I think every chance he has to get a Super Bowl championship, it matters a lot. There's a lot of other quarterbacks that have things at stake, but no one with what Patrick Mahomes has at stake as his career progresses. As many as he can pile up with this first Super Bowl run is gonna matter a lot when he makes runs later in his career and tries to catch Brady, because you know it's in his mind, whether you want to admit it or not. He's thinking about it.
So Caleb, what's just your general reaction when you hear that?
I mean, am I surprised? No. We're at the point of the year where everyone's going to try to poke holes at the Chiefs, try to talk about the Chiefs, and basically say things about Mahomes. Now, I do agree with Dominique Foxworth right there, saying that he believes that's in the back of his mind, trying to catch Brady. Yeah, I want to catch Brady too. To have 4 Super Bowls in a very good spawning career, yeah, you can do it. That'd be awesome. But also, I think people need to realize is that there's a lot of stuff that also go into this. One player drops the ball, someone fumbles, someone can't catch the ball, a guy tries to catch the ball and it goes through his hands. I mean, several different things can happen. When you look at this pressure, I don't think there's pressure. I think it's more Mahomes just going out, doing his thing, and showing everyone, hey, I can still play. I think Mahomes is going to do what he did last year, take it week by week. I'm a big proponent. I've been on this podcast for years. I've said this. Let's have our problems during the season, and when we get to the playoffs, and as long as we can get in the playoffs, we have Mahomes and our key guys. We are going to be fine. And we see that has been the key the last time they won the Super Bowl. There have been struggles during the season. Other teams went on these hot runs, these hot starts, did extremely well. First week of the playoffs, knocked out in the divisional round or wild card round. While the Chiefs already went through struggles, got things figured out, and was ready to go. So is there pressure? You can say sure, but Mahomes already knows we just got to take this thing week by week, and we'll figure out what needs to be adjusted week in and week out.
Yeah, so the conversation about does Mahomes have the most pressure on him this season? I think it's very interesting for a couple reasons. And a lot of times when I hear these discussions, I immediately just sort of blow them off. Just because it's like it's ridiculous. The guy, how can the guy have pressure on him? He's already proven so much on the field. But I think because you are literally talking about something that has never been done in Super Bowl and Super Bowl and NFL history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes specifically does have a lot of pressure on him because there is just something so historic about what Kansas City has to do. I don't think it's just on Patrick Mahomes. I also think it's on Chris Jones. I also think it's on Travis Kelce. I think the core guys that have been here for the last 2, I think all of them have pressure on them, but I think it gets amplified at the quarterback position because the quarterback makes or breaks the team, right? When you win a game, it's because your quarterback was because of who your quarterback, even when it's not because of who your quarterback was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the 2015 Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl not because of Peyton Manning. And in a lot of reasons, it was they won a lot that year despite Peyton Manning, right? Like Peyton Manning in that final year in Denver for that final Super Bowl run was not great. Okay. It was really more of his mind than his body was the reason that he was able to be successful. And that defense was leading the way but we still give him credit for winning the Super Bowl, right? And that's just because of the quarterback position. So for Kansas City, you have so much pressure on you here because you're the quarterback of the team that has the potential to go back to back to back. And I do think that there's that because there are some players that you can make the argument, like let's say Josh Allen, right? Let's say there's a lot of pressure on Josh Allen. Let's try and make the argument for that. Well, you failed in the playoffs in multiple years. You've been knocked out in the playoffs by the same couple of teams over basically your entire career. But you lost Stephon Diggs. Your team's sort of rebuilding, so I don't know if there's a lot of pressure there. Okay, let's talk Lamar Jackson. Okay, there's a lot of pressure on Lamar Jackson. Man, you've won a couple of MVPs, but your lackluster playoff success. Can you really win it in the big game? Okay, that's a very good reason to say that Lamar Jackson has a lot of pressure on him this season.
Okay.
But we know that during the regular season that Lamar Jackson has proven multiple times now to look like the best quarterback in football. And we know that part of the reason for the playoff mishaps was not just because of him, but because of the offensive scheme that they were running. And they just completely abandoned the run game, which was part of the weakest part of the Chiefs defense. So I would say that was an offensive problem, not just a Lamar Jackson problem. So, you could say that, maybe it's more on the coaching staff too, than the pressure is just on him. We can go Joe Burrow. Well, the pressure on you is just to stay healthy. That's end of story.
Yeah. So basically,
like you go through all the other top teams, top contenders in the NFL, and you could just say, well, but, right? There's not a lot of that for Patrick Mahomes. The pressure is on you because if you don't reach the mountaintop again, you may never have an opportunity for this again. Whereas Lamar Jackson is going to play football in 2025, 2026 NFL season. Josh Allen is still going to be a quarterback in the NFL during that. Like the pressure is on him because the time frame is so short. Where if you mess it up this year, you may never get that opportunity again.
Interesting. Say that quote one more time.
I think that because Kansas City, you've already won 2 in a row, right?
Okay.
And in order to get to 3, you have to win 2. There's no guarantee that Kansas City will ever be in this situation to where they've won back-to-back Super Bowls. And so if you mess it up this year, if you slip up, if you, let's say in the divisional round, have a historically bad game against a good team and you throw a couple of dumb interceptions and get kicked out of the playoffs, or you go into overtime in the AFC Championship game and you aren't able to score a touchdown on the first drive, instead you kick a field goal, right? Something like that happens over the course of the season and you get knocked out of the playoffs, you lose your opportunity for a three-peat, which means in order to reach that historic monument again, to get the opportunity to do it again, you would have to go and win back-to-back Super Bowls again, which we know is extremely difficult because it's only been done like 6 times in NFL history.
Yeah.
So the pressure is on him just because of how historic the moment truly is.
And I'm just kind of bringing this up because you look at Brady. If you look at, he won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Mahomes had a chance to go 3 Super Bowls in 3 years if he wins this next year. But also another thing is that I feel like the Chiefs have already kind of got their bad playoff losses out of the way. They kind of know what works in certain situations and what doesn't. Because you look at the Patriots, man, from 2004 with the Super Bowl to 2014, there was a 10-year period where Brady and them weren't doing nothing. They were making it, but they were losing. So I think this team, as long as we can bring in the right players, have the right scheme, and continue to take it week in and week out and do what they're supposed to do, not throw bad interceptions, but Pacheco doesn't fumble, Kelsey holds on to the ball, guys can catch the ball, defense can actually tackle, and the scheme works out. I feel like this team has a chance to do the three-peat and possibly have it to where every couple of years they can win a Super Bowl, I feel like. If they get this repeat and they keep kind of the same guys rolling every couple of years, it'd be great.
I think
feel
that
go ahead.
your point that Brady, there was that 10-year timestamp where the Patriots didn't win a Super Bowl. I think that gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah,
and
it
how
does.
that
No one talks about it.
they were the best team over that 20-year stint, and there was a huge chunk of it, over half the chunk of it,
Exactly.
they were not, they were not making it to that final point. So it's like what Kansas City has the opportunity to do is so rare. And I don't know if, and I think I've struggled with it, like the ring ceremonies tonight. And I remember the first ring ceremony, we were all about it. We were like, oh my God, what's it going to be? Like, we've sort of just got into this, I don't want to say used to it, but it's what they have the opportunity to do would be so difficult to repeat, because it literally took 20 years to go back to back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know why the pressure wouldn't be on him.
So here's my question then. If
Go
the
ahead.
Chiefs go back to back to back, are they considered to be the best dynasty of all time?
I think it's really hard to make an argument against it.
You can't give it to the Patriots because they didn't win 3 in a row. If you look, their Super Bowl wins 2001, 2003, 2004, 2014, 2016, 2018. I mean, 3 in a row. I think 4 in 5, 6 years. Hello, that's a dynasty that's number 1 on my list, and all those players need to be looked at.
And if we take the perspective that Patrick Mahomes is competing to be the greatest of all time against Tom Brady, if you don't get the same amount of rings, what Brady has 7. So let's say Patrick ends his career with 5, right?
Okay.
But out of those 5, 3 of them are back to back to back. Man, that is a damn hard argument to make.
Yeah.
That having 3 in a row can equal maybe sort of leveling the playing field if you're trying to compete with the greatest of all time. Yeah, you have 7. But I had 3 straight years of doing, which
Just
is something
dominant.
that you never were able to do, right? So if you're trying to become the greatest of all time, doing something like that can help level the playing field and sort of bring another argument into it, because Kansas City will be able to say, hey, I've done something literally no other starting quarterback in any NFL has ever done, and that's win 3 in a row. And I think that's why there was a lot more pressure on him this year than there was last year, because the back-to-back had happened before. Hell, Kansas City had been to back-to-back Super Bowls before. Like, it wasn't even unprecedented for Kansas City to do it, because Mahomes had gone back-to-back Super Bowls.
Exactly. Won against the 49ers, lost against the Buccaneers, back-to-back. The next year they lost in the AFC Championship game, and then Super Bowl. So, I mean, great spot. I mean, Louis, they've either been to the AFC Championship game with a chance to win the game and go to the Super Bowl, or finish in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's pretty good. The Patriots weren't doing this. They 2007 and then 2011 they lost to the Giants. And in between, I know they had some some playoff losses. And then also there was one that got absolutely smacked around by the Ravens. They just ran the ball all up around them. And then I think there was also another game where the Broncos defense shut down Tom Brady and Brock Gronkowski. That defense shut them down. So again, there's a lot of different things that are going on here with the Chiefs. I believe if they can go back to back to back 3 in a row, they are considered the best dynasty of all time.
I think that, I mean, if the ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl, right? And when we talk about dynasties in the NFL, they are just such short little segments of time, because the NFL is the not for long league. So you talk about dynasties are 3-4 year time frames, right? You talk about the Cowboys dynasty of the 90s, it's 4 years long, right? Like when you talk about dynasties in the NFL, they're a rookie contract long. So if for 3 straight years you're able to reach the top of the mountain, I think it's very difficult for you to say, hey, this isn't the greatest dynasty. This isn't the greatest segment of team history among the rest of the NFL because you've literally done the most that you could possibly do. You've won the entire league 3 straight times. I do think that there was a lot of pressure on Patrick Mahomes, but like I also said, I think there's also a lot of pressure on the rest of the guys, the rest of the team, because Chris Jones has been here for all of them. Travis Kelce has been here for all of them. So there's just going to be a lot of pressure on the core guys. There's a lot of pressure on Andy Reid and this coaching staff because all of that I just said about him applies to the coaching staff and the front office because now the pressure for the front office has sort of alleviated a little bit because, well, you've done your draft and free agency and all of that. But this is what they have the opportunity to do will be historic, and they will be able to stand by themselves.
So do you think that Chris Jones is in pressure to get 20-plus sacks, or did you show up this season? Because historically, when a player gets paid, they don't be doing that well and they get hurt.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that I don't think we should have any problems with anybody being motivated this year, right?
That's fair.
And also, Chris Jones has gotten paid before, and it didn't affect him.
Fair.
So, I'm not worried about – I am in no way worried about any individual player, not being motivated to be the best that they can be. That's not really my worry up to this point with any particular player, especially not a leader that is on this team, because I think Kansas City has been able to foster such a positive locker room. They've been able to foster such a winning culture with Andy Reid, under Andy Reid, with Patrick Mahomes, and that I don't think that that's going to be a problem here in Kansas City.
Good point. And I think what we're going to see, man, if they win it, one of the best teams of all time, greatest dynasty. So, yeah.
All right. I'll be interested to see I know that we can't see the actual ring ceremony, but we can see the pictures of it when they come out tomorrow. I'm sure the Chiefs are going to tweet out some sort of slow motion video of the ring and break it down for you. There's Andy Reid and his wife. Did you know he has 13 grandkids?
Dang.
Yeah. The man's going to stay busy over the next 6 weeks.
Oh yeah.
But
There you go. What's up, Red? Looking smooth as always.
I like you though.
Come on now.
they're just such
I like the red suit.
What's up, y'all? We're going for 2 now. Oh yeah. We're going for 2. Yeah.
Duffy. That's awesome. They're happy.
I like the guys that are wearing their other Super Bowl ring to the ceremony. If you saw McDuffie was wearing the ring.
Yeah, it's awesome. Hey, they deserve to wear as much as they want. They own it. So
all we can hope is for another one right around this time of year. All right, guys. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. We will be back next week. We'll definitely have another Thursday show. And hopefully JP will be done, moving, because that's been hectic on his side of things. So with that, thanks everybody for watching, and make sure you follow us on Chiefs Focus Twitter to keep up with all of our shows and all that other fun stuff. With that, we will see you guys next week.